This day in sports history.
Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
Hey, and welcome to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. Check out our full line of sports history podcasts at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's August 19th, and this day may be one of the weirdest in the sports calendar for strange happenings on the baseball diamond. Let's start out in 1951, when 3-foot 9-inch Eddie Gaedel came to the plate for the St. Louis Browns. We've talked about Bill Veeck a lot on this podcast, from the historically important, like signing Larry Doby and Satchel Paige to their first major league contracts, to the disastrous disco night in Chicago. Veeck put his stamp on a lot of things as a baseball executive. Well, on this day, the American League was celebrating its 50th anniversary. The Browns were playing a doubleheader against the Detroit Tigers on this day. Between games, there was a short celebration of the event on the field. At the end, a giant papier-mâché cake was brought onto the field, and out popped little person Eddie Gaedel, wearing a Browns uniform with the number 1/8 on the back. The 20,000 at the park that day enjoyed the humor and believed that to be it. But in the bottom of the first inning, Gaedel popped out of the dugout and started swinging 3 toy bats in the on-deck circle. Gaedel was then announced as a pinch hitter, and he strode to the plate. Home plate umpire Ed Hurley did not see the humor in the stunt, and so he called time and summoned Browns manager Zach Taylor. Taylor was prepared. He exited the dugout with Gaedel's signed contract in his hand. It was official, and so play continued. Tigers pitcher Bob King could only smile and laugh as he tried to throw a pitch in the smallest strike zone in Major League history. He couldn't find it and walked Gaedel on 4 straight pitches. After he got to first, he was replaced by a pinch runner, and that was it for the day. But that wasn't it from the American League office point of view. AL President Will Harridge called up Veeck and ordered him to release Gaedel, saying that bringing in a little person was not in the best interests of baseball. Though it's not called the Gaedel rule, his appearance did cause a change in the rules concerning contracts and when a player is eligible. Gaedel's contract had been sent to the league office late on Friday, August 17th, and Veeck knew that the contract would hardly be looked at, and so was signed off on. Any intensive review would be done on Monday, the 20th. Because of Veeck's antics, Major League Baseball changed the rules, saying that all contracts must be approved by the Commissioner of Baseball before a player can become eligible. Also, Veeck had given Gaedel very specific instructions to not swing the bat. Veeck had taken out a large insurance policy on his life, and he was to keep the bat on his shoulder and leave it there. The first 2 pitches by Kane had been legit attempts, but the next 2 were lobbed in. Gaedel, who had been a part-time actor and promotional model in the past, earned $100 for his plate appearance on this day in 1951. On to the next baseball oddity, this one from 1997, when Wade Boggs made a relief appearance for the New York Yankees. Now, that's not so unusual. Position players have stepped in to pitch in emergency situations or when a game is well out of reach, which was the case here. This was the first game of an 8-game road trip for the Yankees, and they were in Anaheim taking on the Angels. By the 8th inning, the Angels were up 12-4. They'd roughed up starter David Wells in the first, scoring 7 runs, and then added 4 more over the next pair of innings. He was pulled after 3 complete. Reliever Graham Lloyd was brought on, and he pitched a solid 4 innings and only allowed 1 earned run. Now, could Lloyd have gone back out and pitched 1 more inning? More than likely, yes. He'd only thrown 53 pitches. He probably had more in the tank. But Boggs had been lobbying manager Joe Torre for a chance to pitch an inning, and so he got his chance in a lost game. Add to that the Yankees bullpen had done a lot of work in the past couple of days, and they were set to play a doubleheader the following day. Boggs had not started or played his usual third base in this game, so he was fresh, and now he had his opportunity. And who knew that Boggs was a knuckleballer? He walked the first batter he faced, got 2 ground ball outs after that, and then facing Angels catcher Todd Green, Boggs baffled him with a knuckler and struck him out. Boggs threw a total of 12 knuckleballs in his first appearance. He actually made a second relief appearance, this one coming in '99 when he was with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. In that outing, Boggs pitched 1 1/3 innings, giving up a run on 3 hits. And now to our final baseball oddity. Let's go to 1941, when Pittsburgh Pirates manager Frankie Frisch got tossed for a really strange reason. The first thing you should know is that Frisch was no stranger to being thrown out of ball games by umpires. In his playing days and managerial stints, he was ejected 100 times. On this day, Frisch's Pirates were playing a doubleheader against the Brooklyn Dodgers at Ebbets Field. The first game on this day was actually a makeup from a rainout earlier in the year, and with both teams in the heart of a pennant race, there was extra incentive for the umpires to get both games in. The Dodgers won Game 1 9-0. When the second game started, there were some dark clouds in the distance, and third base umpire Jocko Conlon noted a slight mist in the air. The Dodgers put up a run in the bottom of the first, and with darker clouds moving closer and closer to Ebbets Field, the Pirates started to slow play everything, taking a little longer to get to the plate, stepping out of the batter's box and taking a bit more time to get back in, adding just a little bit more time in hopes that rain would be on the way soon and the game could be called. Dodger fans started booing the Pirates, and Conlon told Frisch that his boys needed to pick up the pace. In the third inning, the rain picked up a little, more than a drizzle, but nowhere near a deluge. But that did not stop Frisch from yelling at Conlon, "Hey, Jock, don't you see the rain? Don't you have the guts to call it?" To which Conlon responded, "Don't you have the guts to play in it?" To start the top of the fourth, Frisch began twirling a black umbrella above his head, and then started walking to take his place as third base coach. Even though Conlon saw the humor and cracked a smile, he tossed Frisch from the game. The Dodgers put up 5 runs in the 8th to win Game 2, 6-2. But the league office was not quite finished, with Frisch leading to Ford Frick fining Frankie Frisch $50 for what he called Frisch's vaudeville act. But the story also doesn't quite end there. Norman Rockwell's 1948 painting titled Tough Call depicts 3 umpires looking skyward with a few drops of rain falling from the sky, and there are 2 managers behind that trio arguing. And that picture is said to have been inspired by the events on this day. 2 of the 3 umpires in the painting were at Ebbets Field on this day, and the 2 managers are from Pittsburgh and Brooklyn. However, as author Paul Jackson pointed out in an article written about today's events, there is not an umbrella depicted in Rockwell's painting. Frisch is not the Pittsburgh manager in the picture, and Conlon, the man who did the ejecting, is not there either. So there are doubts about the provenance of the theory of the Rockwell painting being based on the events on this day from 1941. And on this day in 1984, it was the Merry Mex winning his final major golf championship, and he had his wife to thank for the motivation. Lee Trevino was 44. He'd won 28 PGA Tour events at this point in his career, but the pain in his back was getting worse. A lifetime of swinging golf clubs, plus, as mentioned on the June 27th edition of This Dish, he'd been struck by lightning 9 years earlier, and that had affected his back as well. Early in '84, he was ready to put the golf clubs in the garage and take up broadcasting. He shot a 76 in the first round of the Players' Championship, and he told his wife that he didn't think he could do it much more. His wife, Claudia, was having none of that talk. She went to the golf course the next day and followed Lee for 18 holes. Trevino carded a 66 in the second round. Claudia told him to never mention that he could not play to her anymore, not after shooting that good a score on such a tough golf course. She added, "You're just using your sore back as an excuse." So he kept playing. Entering the PGA Championship in '84, played that year at Shoal Creek in Alabama, Trevino was riding a crest of confidence and carrying a new putter that he'd bought in Holland a few weeks prior that he'd beat and bent into shape to get the lie that he liked. He said, "I liked that putter. It was tough like me." After a third-round 67 in this event, Trevino had a one-shot lead over Lanny Watkins, and he was two clear of Gary Player. Lee's first hole on Sunday set the tone for him when he sank a 60-foot bomb with his new Dutch putter for birdie. He knew something special was brewing. Instead of a three-putt bogey, it was a one-putt birdie. Watkins hung close, taking a one-shot lead at the turn, but gave it back with a couple of bogeys on the backside. On the par 3 16th, Trevino found himself in a little bit of trouble, hitting his tee shot in a greenside bunker. He flopped it, but left it 20 feet shy of the cup, and now he was looking at possibly a two-putt bogey, while Watkins was lining up his birdie try. Trevino pulled old Dutch out and gave it the old Billy Baroo, and he rolled in the 20-foot par putt in what Player would later say was the greatest putt he'd ever seen under the circumstances. Watkins missed his birdie and tapped in for his par, and that was the turning point. A 15-foot birdie putt at 18 was his final stroke of the day, and he gave his putter a kiss for all the hard work. It was his sixth and final major tournament win, and if it hadn't been for his wife Claudia, well, Trevino may not have even been there in the first place. And hey, one quick note. You've no doubt heard the ad for Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, at the start of this podcast. I used that as my source for this story, so thanks for that, Matt. And let me tell you, this book is jam-packed with great golf stories. The second edition has 205 pages, with most of the stories 3 to 4 pages long, so you do the math, and that should tell you how many stories are actually in this book. Now, if you're a golfer, or you know one, this book would make a great addition to anybody's library. So, check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or wherever you buy your books. And time now for today's non-sports fun fact. Mars' moon Phobos is the closest moon to any planet in our solar system, and it will crash into the Martian surface in about 10 million years. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with yet another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.